那接下来第二位讲者，其实他的题目就是香港智慧城市发展的蓝图的看法。So coming next, we'll be inviting the second keynote speaker onto the stage, and he is Mr. Alan Yeung, JP, Government Chief Information Officer. Mr. Yeung was a Chief Corporate Development Officer of the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, and he started his career in 1987 in the Silicon Valley, working for many high-tech companies. He will share his insight of Smart City Blueprint for Hong Kong. 那接下来我们第二位的专题演讲的嘉宾是香港特别行政区政府资讯科技总监杨德斌先生 JP， 他将会为我们发表的就是香港智慧城市蓝图。杨先生成为香港科技园公司首席企业发展主任，以及在1987年的时候已经开始在美国开始工作，曾在多间高科技公司里面工作过。现在我们就把时间交给杨先生。
Eric, Chairman Lee, EQ, Charles, Winnie, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In 2016 policy address, our chief executive directed to build Hong Kong into a smart city. Our office has engaged a consultant in September last year to start off the consultation study of having a smart city blueprint. The blueprint report will be available by mid this year. So I'm here today not to talk about the blueprint itself because it's still in the work. I'm here to share with you why we are doing it, how we are doing it, and some of the initial direction of our blueprint. So I hope this would still meet your expectation. First of all, why we are doing this. As a city, we actually are facing new challenges every day. In terms of population, our population is aging. Today, we have about 16% of our population aged 65 and above. In 10 years' time, this percentage would be rise to 24%. And in another 10 years' time, that would become 29%. That means 1 in 3 are 65 or above. And also, actually, the women in Hong Kong have taken over Japan as the longest living human being in the world, aged 87 on the average. And the men actually are slightly lower, is 84. So, sorry guys. Nonetheless, with all this aging population and also longer life expectancy, it imposes great burden on the society, in particular, the healthcare system. Hong Kong actually has a very well healthcare system today. If the aging population grow and we still use the current way of regular checking for elderly, this burden cannot be accommodated easily. So that's one issue. The second thing is we have 7.3 million people living in Hong Kong for an area of 1,000 square kilometers. In fact, this number should shrink to 24% of it because that's the only built-up area that we have. So we are living in a very highly density place. And the buildings, not only the people are aging, the buildings are aging as well. So we have about over 300,000 buildings aged 40 years or above. And so there is a large stock of building and also old district that require redevelopment. Our URA chairman is here. I think he's having a very large job in terms of how to rebuild the city. While we are building it, how can we put in the new element, having a smart building, having a green building, having a building information system. Another thing that we have to look at is the economy for Hong Kong. And traditionally, we have 4 pillars, being the financial services, trade and logistics, tourism, and professional services. And our GDP has been growing around 1 to 2 and 2-ish % per year in the last few years. So how can we look at new area of growth for Hong Kong in the forthcoming time? And last but not least, Hong Kong signed the Paris Agreement, and we are being a world corporate citizen to sign up and commit to this climate change measure. So how do we take forward to comply and to become a sustainable city going forward? So all these are the reasons that we would need to look at the city management holistically in order to address this in a proper way. So that's why we actually engaged a consultant to look into this 6 areas in our blueprint for Hong Kong to take forward. So I will go through each one in the light that we are going to put forward our report. First, the policy objective. It's very similar to what Chairman Lee has presented in terms of our objective of having a smart city. In a way, we should make good use of information technology to address all these urban challenges in a way that in a traditional approach, it may not be able to easily address all those city challenges. But now, with the introduction of new technology, a new way of innovation, they give rise to new approaches, new models for us to handle this kind of urban challenges. Chairman Lee just mentioned about this bike sharing system, which make good use. The bike exists for a long, long time, hundreds of years. But how can we make use of the bike connecting to your mobile phone so everyone can then have a shared bike? So that is a good example of how we make good use of innovation technology to build a smarter city. And the purpose, of course, is to build a city for a better quality of living, a sustainable city, more efficient, safe, and also another thing is to attract global talent and also global business to come. And finally, we need to inspire our youth and also our citizens to continue the innovation and sustainable economic development. So that would be our goal and objective. The second area would be the development plans. There are many ways to describe a smart city. And Boyd Cohen actually grouped them into 6 key areas. And we would base our smart city blueprint based on Boyd Cohen's will of smart city on these 6 key elements. Let me just go through the 6 real quick. First, the smart economy. I mentioned about we need to find new economic development area, and they actually can make good use of the technology and innovation as a base or as a driver, so we can look into something new as for us. In particular, we would explore fintech, big data hub, smart manufacturing, startup ecosystem, blockchain-based services. All these are actually quite recent in the past few years in developed very rapidly. And Hong Kong has been participated and also seeing very good promising growth in all these new areas. So the formation of Innovation and Technology Bureau just about 16 months ago would actually having a key focus in developing all these new development area in a way that we can develop our economy more diverse, in a more diversified and knowledge-based growth. Take for example, MTR. I think they already established a very good system and continue to add new innovation and technology to increase their service level. Remember in the early days when MTR first introduced Octopus, it was quite advanced at that time. Octopus was not a technology invented locally. It was actually imported from overseas. The standard was based in Japan. But nonetheless, when it first introduced in Hong Kong, the gate cannot allow people to come in fast enough. It was about maybe 10 or more seconds for one to come through and the second one to wait for. For Hong Kong, people are impatient. We are fast-paced. So we need this to turn in 2 seconds. So the technology has to be adopted to this fast-paced, high-dense environment. I think the MTR did it. And this is a very good example of we do not mean every technology had to be invented here or developed locally. But the technology can be adopted to Hong Kong's use, and then it can, once it survives this kind of density, once it survives this kind of high pace as an urban city, it can be used in many other cities, just like MTR taking the services worldwide. So it's now in Beijing, in Shenzhen, in Australia, in London, in Sweden. This is one model, I think, in the building of smart city. We should keep in mind how we can adopt technology and apply in Hong Kong as a showcase and radiate that into the rest of the world for this kind of sharing. Chairman Lee just mentioned, just at our motherland, we have over 500 cities with smart city planning in mind. And so there's a lot of growth potential for this kind of technology and services going forward. And I believe this can form a new economic development for Hong Kong as well. And so this is perhaps what Chairman Lee has shared. This is also another direction is to go with the One Belt, One Road. So it's not confined just to mainland China, but there are many other cities in the world that are also having smart city development in the plan. The next is the smart environment. Environment Bureau has just promulgated the Climate Action Plan 2030 Plus under the public consultation. In this plan, we are having KPIs, we're having development objective to meet the climate change challenge and build Hong Kong into a sustainable city. And there are many elements, including the green building, including the LED lighting adoption, including the solar, including the wind technologies that can be applied and can be used as a holistic way to connect our blueprint in a very holistic way. Smart government. Obviously, it's very important to think about how the government can service our citizens better. In the government approach, it can have a very important cultural change. Instead of the citizen go to each counter for one purpose, now services can be developed into a way that perhaps services can be pushed to the citizen in need, not everyone, for those in need automatically in the future. So how can we enable such new government services? And there's another thing that we would need to set the right standard. So the government plus the private sector can also, based on the same standard, to share information and build on top of the development. Our Development Bureau actually have recently launched a study on the Spatial Data Infrastructure Standard all the land-related planning will be in the future based on this standard. And it would go digital, it would become additive, so everything that we have can be added into this new platform. And we can then have the departments talk to each other and also talk to the private sector in the common standard. And that can actually foster much faster, more efficient, and greener development for the city. Smart living is something that we always look for as a city. And so how can we solve our aging issue, for example? I mentioned about the hospital cannot sustain the burden if every now and then the elderly people go to the hospital for regular checking. Can we use data? Can we use for telemedicine? Can we use the smart hospital to solve our aging issue? All this can also link to how people can make good use of the smart payment and also aging in place and all that. I think that would be a very important part of our smart living development. Again, on the smart mobility, Hong Kong has been very successful in using public transportation. 90% of our population are already on public transportation. And how can we make it even more friendly, easy to use, and multimodal? In addition, the last, not 1 mile, the last few hundred meters, can we have a smart walkability to connect home to the public transportation? So all this integrated thinking has to be developed into a system. Smart people, there are many things that we need to do to enable our people to upgrade themselves, retool as technology and also opportunity of career would change very rapidly. So how can we retool our population in terms of career and skills? Another area would be the EID. We talk about we have a physical ID. In the future, because we are going to use a lot more e-services, e-banking, e-payment, e-government, we should have a very secure, authenticated EID for each individual, and maybe for each thing that IoT is about to be deployed. So this EID is under review in our Hong Kong system, and we would add this into our totality considerations. The next thing is the governance arrangement. Every city that we see having a smart city have high-level commitment and steering committee to drive cross-departmental and bureau collaboration. And there'll be no different for Hong Kong, that we should set up similar structure in order to take across all these initiatives. Digital infrastructure is important to enable all these services. So we would review what would be the right structure for us. For Hong Kong, we definitely have already established a very solid ICT infrastructure, including the connectivity worldwide, including the data center, including the platform for cloud, AI, and big data. On top, once we have all these platforms established, innovation will flourish, and we should enable this conducive environment for Hong Kong. And within the intra-Hong Kong, we also look into the new system, infrastructure like IoT, like the up-and-coming 5G, free Wi-Fi, and all that. Open data and big data will form a very important backbone for our smart city. In terms of open data, we already have a well-collected data set, near 7,000 data set from 50 bureau and departments. We are adding 500 APIs to 1,000 APIs later on this year, and we would also add the historical data plus geotagging into the open data portal. It's very important to note that open data does not equate to open government. There are many, many means to provide information to serve open government purpose. Our open data objective is to collect government data in a digital format, free reuse under one portal. And the objective is to promote and propel innovation for the city. So we would look at that as a way that how we can work with our community and departments to open up more and more relevant data, and so as to propel such development. Legal framework needs to be reviewed for certain things that to take forward smart city. There are certain rules and regulations that we may have to change in order to foster a more efficient implementation. And lastly, I want to mention that it's important to note that building a smart city is not a buy and supply from the government and the private sector. It should be under a PPP model. And what we have seen, successful ones, are like New York Link NYC, where a private sector consortium formed by Qualcomm, Intersection, CIVIQ, actually provision free Wi-Fi for the city using the old phone booth. And the city actually also get benefit from a cut of the revenue. And that actually forms a good model for us to think through. Each city and each project may have a different PPP model that we should continue to explore. For example, in Hong Kong, when we implement free Wi-Fi connected city, we are also opening up government venue for private service provider to come in and provide free Wi-Fi for our community. That's another form of PPP. Lastly, we would identify what would be the immediate pilots that we can do in order to take forward certain trial that the program and project can be explored and exploited in certain confined way, and then enlarge it to the rest of the city. And those will form the good base for us to make a citywide smart city program. With that, I will conclude my presentation. Again, I want to stress that it's not a one-off exercise. Smart city is a journey that we would embark and continue to shape ourselves so as to build Hong Kong into a smarter and smarter city in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yeung, for sharing your ideas about the Smart City Blueprint in Hong Kong. And ladies and gentlemen, do look forward to the Smart City Blueprint, which will be released and published in mid-2017.